I think we're going to get started with our next session. And apparently, Tim just told me the first one is by Zoom, and it's Alan Winfield. So is that, I don't see Alan or anyone. Is anyone there?
Oh, I'm here. Hello.
Okay, I hear you. That's progress. Are you going to appear on screen? There you are. Okay. So we're under tight time constraints. I think we'll just let you take it away. As far as I can tell, each talk is, 20 minutes. Right, Tim?
Yeah.
Looks like each talk is 20. So you ready to go, Alan?
I'm ready to go. Thank you.
All right. So it's an ethical black box for social robots, a draft open standard. Alan Winfield, and forgive me, I'm just going to say et al. I'm not going to try to pronounce the rest of the names. So thank you very much. And I'll let you know when you have 5 minutes to go.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm delighted to be speaking with you, and very sorry, of course, not to be in the beautiful city of Seoul. Yes, I'm giving a paper on behalf of myself and my colleagues, Anouk van Maris, Pericle Salvini, and Marina Jurotka. Now, this is this work is part of a project called RoboTips, which is a collaboration across two universities, University West of England, University of Oxford. It's a 5-year project, and I'll tell you just a little bit about the project while we're going through the presentation. So, the ethical black box. Well, it's an idea that we came up with several years ago. Very, very simple idea, incredibly simple. It is that all robots, and in particular social robots, should be equipped as standard by the robot equivalent of an aircraft flight data recorder. We think this is very important because without this, then it's impossible to investigate robot accidents or incidents, that is near misses. So a very simple idea. And the paper that we first presented this idea was about 5 years ago, The Case for an Ethical Black Box. So what would the ethical black box do? Well, it's, again, conceptually very simple. It's just a data logger. And the orange box here is conceptually the data logger. The blue boxes are the robot. So the idea is that we have one-way data flows from the sensors, the robot's control system, the embedded artificial intelligence, and the actuators. So typically, we would compress or sample sensor data and actuator demands. We would also record high-level goals, alerts, and decisions, ideally, of course, with the reasons for those decisions. And of course, we would have a standard interface to connect and access the ethical black box data. Now, why do we call it an ethical black box? Well, of course, black box is the colloquial name for aircraft flight data recorders. But we call it an ethical black box because we believe it would be irresponsible, that is unethical, not to equip robots with one of these. So we're working on the current project on model ethical black boxes for different robots and robot operating systems. And so far, we've developed ethical black boxes for the ePUC, the Miro robot, and the Now robot, which the first three that you see across the bottom. And with one of our industrial partners, we're working on this robot as well, this humanoid robot. So here is just a simple demonstration. This is something that I prepared during the lockdown when the pandemic, when the lab was closed. So this is an example of a robot, an ePUC robot running in a simulation, and you can see the ePUC is driving around this little circuit, and the data from the ethical black box is streaming in this window, the Python window. And just to show you what you're looking at, the ethical black box data is being updated every 1 second, and it shows the date, the time, the robot time, which may be different to the EBB time, the line floor following sensor readings, the infrared sensor readings, the joint angles, and the joint demands. So in other words, the motor demands. So it's a very simple conceptual idea, but we think very important. So accidents. Now, accidents happen. They happen all the time, of course, but it's important to understand that accidents, the investigation of accidents, is a human process. It's a human process that involves both data from the black box, if you like, the event data recorder. They're referred to event data recorders in vehicles. But of course, you combine the data from the ethical black box with human witness testimony, with forensic data, and so on. So it's a human process. And in fact, within the RoboTips project, we're actually running a series of mock or staged robot accidents. We think we're the first project in the world to ever do this. And of course, we're interested in figuring out, in writing, if you like, the processes and the technologies. So the technology is the EBB, but the processes, the human processes for actually conducting robot accident investigations. And as part of the project, we're running 3 staged accident scenarios. The first in assisted living robots, which we've now completed, the second in educational toy robots, and the third either in driverless cars or quite possibly, we're hoping, in smart prosthetic devices with another one of our industrial partners. And for each of those accidents, we have human volunteers, both as the subjects of the accident, in other words, the person to whom the accident happens, witnesses, human witnesses to the accident, and volunteers as members of the accident investigation team. And we're very lucky to have on the project a world authority, that's Professor Carl McRae, in accident investigation in both aviation and healthcare. So we have really good advice in helping us to do this. And indeed, here's just a few pictures of a pilot of the mock accident, assisted living mock accident in April of this year. And in fact, the subject of the accident is an elderly lady called Rose, although Rose is played by Alex here. So we've changed his name to Ross. And he's fallen down. You may be able to see there's a chair just on its side there. The question is, how did Ross have the accident? And was the robot, did the robot cause the accident? Or if it didn't cause the accident, did it make matters worse? So it's quite a complicated scenario, simple accident, but complicated scenario for the accident investigators to to figure out. Of course, this is the neighbor played by Paul, who comes across Ross and calls the paramedic. And this picture here shows our accident investigators. One of them here is Lars from University of Oxford. There's another one sitting in the assisted living studio, interviewing the witnesses, including, for instance, this gentleman here who plays the part of the cleaner of the, the manager of the assisted living facility. And there's the whole team, quite a few volunteers, as you can see. So the ethical black box, of course, should be able to show you what was going on in the moments leading up to the accident, whatever the accident is. And this is the kind of data that you should be able to extract from the EBB. So the red box is the blue line, of course, is a timeline. The accident is here or somewhere at that time. We don't know exactly because, of course, we don't know. And I'll tell you why. These are the interactions on the top between the robot and Rose. And you can see that the robot is telling Rose it's lost its connection with the Wi-Fi. And then the blue boxes show where the robot is in the apartment, and the green boxes show the connection status of the robot. So all relevant information plus and other information, of course, will be in the black box, such as the battery status of the robot and so on. So why do we need an open standard? Our paper is proposing an open standard. Well, these are some very good reasons, not written by me or us, but by Bruce Perens, who leads the Open Source Foundation. It's because, of course, open standards are available to all to read and implement. They create a fairer competitive market for implementations. There's no royalty, no fees, as there are for regular, if you like, professional standards. They don't favor one implementer over another. And of course, normally, implementations of open standards can be extended or offered in subset form. And it's important to say that there's a very famous history of open standards because the internet, the standards that defined the internet, in fact, they were called requests for comment, RFCs, are de facto standards, and they're all completely open. You can still find them, in fact, if you search for the RFCs defining the internet protocols online. So there's a very, as it were, respected history of open standards. So we decided that we wanted to make an open standard for the ethical black box. And if you like, in honor of those internet standards, our draft standard is a request for comments. And what we're hoping is that by presenting the open standard and advocating for it by giving talks like this one, then colleagues, I hope, will be interested to read the standard and give us feedback, and we'll incorporate those. And of course, anybody who gives substantive feedback will certainly be acknowledged in next drafts, in future drafts. And the aim is to provide a technical specification. Of course, that's fairly obvious. And we will are presenting. We're already making available an open source library of model implementations, including the ones I mentioned. And for those colleagues, I know there are several in the audience who are part of the British Standards Institute working group. In fact, we're using BS 0, British Standard 0 2021, which is a standard for standards. So we're using that to provide us with the format, if you like, for the open standard. So essentially, and this is the boring part, and I won't spend too long on this, but the boring part is that the standard is mostly definitions of data structures. And of course, this is the heart of the standard. The standard, the open standard or the definition that we've provided in the annex, the appendix to the paper, the ICRES paper, is not complete. I'll admit to that because, well, actually, there isn't space in the page limit. But the most important parts, I think, are drafted, which is the data specification. And in fact, we define three kinds of ethical black box: record, metadata, and metadata.
Sorry to interrupt you. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. Yes, I'm almost done. So the metadata is data about the robot that this black box is associated with. Data is data about the records that are in the EBB. That's all of these. And robot data is, as you might expect, data records about what's going on in the robot. And in fact, you'll see that there are 1 to n of those. The number of those that you can have is determined by the obviously the size of the storage in the data in the ethical black box. And these records are written in circular fashion. So as is common with all event data recorders and flight data recorders, you always save the most recent, whatever it is, number of seconds or hours of data, and the oldest records are overwritten with the newest records. So it's a kind of circular data store. So I won't go through in detail, but those are the three data structures. And here's an example of a metadata record. So for instance, this record is showing a now robot. You can see there's the name, there's the number of fields, the date the metadata was written, the manufacturer, the operator, the person responsible for the robot, and details of this ethical black box. In other words, the version number and the number and the checksum record as well. And then here's an example of a data record. This is a data record. This is a record of the number of data fields in the EBB at this time, and you clearly need to know how many are in there, and the date they were first written, and the most recent one that was written, for instance. So, and also a checksum, of course. And then here's an example of a single robot data record. It's very simple. So we have a label, the number of fields in the record. So this is the number of fields here. So it's 17. In fact, the date and time, the battery level, the actuator values for the left and right wheel, if this is assuming it's a wheeled robot like the EPUC, infrared sensors. Here's the decision code, obstacle detected, and the reason is turning left to avoid obstacle on the right. So it actually has a reason given. Wi-Fi and a checksum. And finally, and this is the last thing I'll show you, here is an example of a complete ethical black box. And it just shows different kinds of records. So each you can see there's the metadata, the data, and a set of robot data records. There's an actuator value. There's a camera frame, in other words, a screen grab of the camera image, and that is grabbed every, I think it's every, let me see, 10 seconds. So there's a 10-second gap between this grab and this grab here. And then we also have text input commands. So somebody is texting a command into the robot, or speaking might be halt, and there's another one down here for run. So that just shows that some of the data will be captured every second or 2 seconds, I think, in this case, for the actuator demands, the actuator values, but other data will be captured periodically, such as the camera frames, and some data will just be asynchronous, so it'll happen whenever it happens. So I hope that gives you just a very small insight into what's going on. We think that a standard is fantastically valuable because of course it provides a standard approach to implementation of the EBB. It'll actually, if you're debugging, then an EBB provides designers and operators with data on robot use. An EBB can be used to support robot explainability. So for instance, functions such as, why did you just do that? You could actually implement by using the EBB, as it were, not just as a device for accident investigation or near-miss investigation. And of course, we hope that a standard allows implementations to be shared and adapted for different robots, and to encourage manufacturers to develop and market EBBs, and of course, regulators to require EBBs. And just on that final point, we've had, as a project, robotics project, we've had conversations with policymakers in the UK Parliament several times in recent months in order to make sure that they're aware of this, we're advocating for this, and to put it kind of on the, as it were, on the agenda, although that is obviously a long shot in terms of regulation of social robots. So that brings me to the end. So thank you very much indeed for listening, and I hope you found that interesting.
Thank you so much. Really cool. Tremendous. Unfortunately, we're going to go right away because of the time constraints to the next talk. I don't think we have any time for Q&A. So
happy to receive emails or anything.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Alan. So next speaker, forgive me, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, but Cha-Chang Kim, just the direction of AI education in the school education field. HE, are you here? Yes? Okay. So 20 minutes for you. I'll start it, and I'll let you know when there's 5 minutes to go. If you want Q&A, then just plan for that 5 minutes. So we're ready to go. We'll start. Thank you very much. You ready?
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 서울 면남초등학교에 이제 초등학교 교사로 하고 있는 김태창입니다. 지금 제가 오늘 이제 발표할 거는 그 학교 현장에 있으면서 학교에 있는, 우리 대한민국에 있는 학교에 있는 이 교육, 그러니까 AI 인공지능 윤리에 대해서 이루어지고 있는 교육에 관해 가지고 제가 이제 이루어지고 있는 것을 발표하려고 합니다. 네, 일단 차례를 보시면은 이제 서론에서 이제 대한민국에서의 인공지능 윤리 교육, 그리고 학교 교육에서 필요한 인공지능 교육의 방향, 인공지능 윤리 교육의 방향, 그리고 결론으로 이제 이루어져 있습니다. 네, 좀 글씨가 작기는 한데 말씀드리면은 이제 4차 산업혁명 시대가 되면서 이제 AI 윤리 교육에 대한 필요성이 굉장히 많이 늘어났습니다. 특히 이제 AI 교육, 이게 이제 학교에서 이루어져야 된다 해서 세계 각국에서 AI 교육에 대해서 관심이 굉장히 고조가 되었는데요. 그래서 각국, 각 기업, 그리고 각종 단체들이 수많은 AI 윤리 기준, 그리고 AI 기준에 대해서 발표를 하였습니다. 예, 그리고 우리나라 같은 경우에는 그래서 이제 학교에서 특히 초등학교부터 이제 교육을, 인공지능에 관한 교육을 해야 된다고 전국 교대 교육대학원에 융합교육과정, 인공지능 융합교육과정을 개설하였고 각종 대학교에 인공지능 전공이 개설되고 있습니다. 그래서 학교 교육과정에 AI와 소프트웨어 교육과정이 도입이 되어서 이제 강제로 초등학교 5학년부터 이제 AI 소프트웨어 교육을 하여야 되도록 이제 교육과정을 변동시키고 있습니다. AI가 보급된 이제 미래 사회에서 진로 교육이나 직업 교육, 그리고 이제 살아가는 생활에 대해서 여러 가지 변동이 있을 거라 생각해서 학교 교육을 이제 변화시키고 있는 중에 있습니다. 그리고 이제 그러면서 각종 AI 관련 사고나 이제 사회 변화 등에 이제 적응할 수 있는 AI 윤리에 대한 이야기도 계속해서 나오고 있고 교육 과정의 개정이 이루어지고 있습니다. 네, 그래서 4차 산업혁명 시대가 되어가지고 이제 AI 윤리 교육의 이제 필요성이 나타나고 있는데요. 그 AI 윤리는 아직 일어나지 않았습니다. 아직 완벽하게 일어나지 않았지만은 앞으로 언젠가 일어날 것이며, 그리고 이것이 언젠가 굉장히 중요해질 것이 분명하기 때문에 기존에 일어난 사건 혹은 현재의 사회 생활에 맞춰가지고 하는 윤리와는 다른 특성이 있습니다. 그래서 문제는 이제 AI에 대해서, 발전한 AI에 대해서 불안을 느끼거나 혐오를 함으로 인해 가지고 문제가 발생할 수도 있고, 반대로 AI에 대해서 지나친 과신을 하여서 모든 이 문제를 인공지능이 해결을 해줄 수 있을 것이다 라고 하면서 문제가 발생할 수도 있습니다. 특히 직업 관련된 분야에서는 많은 직업이 이제 사라질 것이고 새로운 직업이 나타날 것인데, 학교에서 특히 이제 고등학교, 대학교 이후에 요즘 이제 직업 교육을 중심으로 하고 있는 부분이 좀 있어서, 그런 데서 이제 학교 교육이 따라가지 못해서 아이들이 적응하지 못하고 사회에서 이제 직업을 구하지 못하면서 살아가지 못할까 하는 걱정이 굉장히 많이 있습니다. 정보화 사회 그리고 디지털 사회 때 정보 윤리라든지 디지털 윤리를 주장했던 것처럼 이제 앞으로 다가올 AI 사회에서는 AI가 중심이 되는 이제 AI 윤리가 필요할 것이고, 이를 선제적으로 교육해야 한다라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. AI 윤리 교육의 메인 테마는 아직 일어나지 않았습니다. 하지만 꼭 필요하다라는 것입니다. 네, 그래서 이제 우리나라 대한민국에서 인공지능 윤리 교육이 현재 어떻게 일어나고 있는지에 대해서 말씀을 드리고 주장을 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 네, 지금 현재 대한민국에서는 인공지능 윤리 교육이라고 혹은 인공지능 교육이라고 하면서 코딩 교육과 소프트웨어 교육이 굉장히 중심에 들어와 있습니다. 교육 과정에서는 교육 역량을 중심으로 이제 교육하는 것을 굉장히 강조하고 있고요. 이로 인해서 새로운 시대의 역량 교육으로 코딩 교육과 소프트웨어 교육이 이제 강조되면서 들어왔습니다. 인공지능에 관한 교육을 할 때 그래서 윤리 교육보다는 사실 기술 교육이라든지 진로 교육, 직업 교육을 중심으로 해서 강조하고 있는 현실입니다. 새로운 직업에 적응을 하고 새로 직업을 구해서 잘 사는 사람들을 만드는 것, 이것에 이제 집중이 돼 있는 부분이 있어서 AI 윤리가 굉장히 뒤떨어지고 있는 부분이 있습니다. 그래서 학교 교육에서 이제 필요한 인공지능 교육의 이제 방향을 얘기를 하려고 하는데요. 네. 그래서 인공지능을 이제 학교에서 가르치는 부분에서 당연히 기술 교육도 필요하겠지만은 윤리 교육이나 이 표준 교육이 굉장히 필요하다고 생각하는데요. 결국은 인공지능을 가르치는 이유는 학생들이 삶에 도움이 되고 올바른 삶을 영위하고 그리고 사회에 적응한 올바른 시민이 될 수 있게 하는 것이 이제 교육의 목적, 그리고 교육과정 구성의 목적이라고 생각합니다. 그래서 인공지능을 우리가 가르쳐서 만들 때 인공지능 전문가를 만들 것이냐, 혹은 인공지능을 활용하는 학생을 만들 것이냐, 혹은 인공지능과 올바르게 같이 잘 적응해서 살아가는 학생을 만들 것이냐에 대한 교육 목표가 아직까지는 명확하게 있지 않은 상태입니다. 실제 현재 이루어지고 있는 교육과정, 이제 앞으로 교육과정에서는 좀 변화가 있겠지만은 지금 이제 한 3년 전부터 이루어지고 있는 교육과정에서는 코딩 교육과 소프트웨어 교육, 그러니까 거의 완벽하게 진로 직업 교육만을 중심으로 하고 있어서 우리나라의 현재 교육 과정은 AI 전문가 그리고 AI 개발자를 만들기 위한 교육이 중심으로 되고 있어서 좀 그 부분에 대해서 문제가 있다라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 네, 그래서 이제 AI 윤리에 대해서는 굉장히 구체적이지 않고, 그리고 직업 교육이나 AI 개발 능력을 중심으로 교육이 이루어지고 있기 때문에 여기에 AI 윤리 교육을 추가를 해야 한다라고 이야기를 합니다. 이게 이제 현재 대한민국의 AI 교육의 이제 컨텐츠 내용인데요. 보시면은 초등학교에서부터 중학교, 고등학교에 넘어가면서 거의 AI를 어떻게 개발할 것인가, 그리고 AI를 만드는 코딩 방법에 대한 내용이 중심으로 이루어져 있습니다. 네, 그래서 우리나라 이제 AI 현장에서 있는 교육 AI 교육 현장의 이제 문제점을 말씀을 다시 한번 정리하시면은 이제 AI 교육을 하라고 교육 과정에 이제 내용이 정식으로 들어왔습니다. 그래서 5, 6학년 실과 교육에서 AI 교육을 해야 한다라고 되어 있는데 실과 교육이기 때문에 굉장히 코딩과 소프트웨어 교육, 그러니까 이제 직업 교육으로만 집중되어 있는 부분이 문제가 되어 있습니다. 교사들에게도 AI 관련된 연수를 이제 강조하고 이제 무조건 의무적으로 들으라고 하고 있긴 한데 이 연수 내용도 들어보면은 거의 코딩하는 방법, AI를 활용해 가지고 학생들에게 도구로 사용하는 방법 등 직업이나 활용 교육만 집중되어 있기 때문에 이 부분에서 교사들도 AI의 이제 전문가, 직업 교육만이 필요한 게 아닌데 윤리 교육이 너무 부족하다라고 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 뭐 코딩 프로그램, 드론, AR, VR, 뭐 3D 프린터 이런 도구를 다루고 기술을 다루는 것이 교육의 중심이 될 수는 없다고 생각합니다. 교육 과정에서는 인공지능을 올바르게 활용하고 인공지능 사회에 잘 적응하기 위한 인공지능 윤리 교육이 최종적으로 도입이 되어서 제대로 이루어져야 한다라고 생각을 합니다. 네, 그래서 이제 인공지능 윤리 교육의 이제 방향에 대해서 제가 이제 말씀드리는 부분은 결국 인공지능 윤리 교육의 정의가 필요합니다. 지금 현재 교육 과정이 변경되고 있는 부분을 보면은 역시나 인공지능 윤리가 정확히 무엇인지가 명확하게 이제 적용이 되고 있지 않습니다. 그러니까 인공지능의 윤리를 생각하면 일반적으로 생각했을 때 인공지능이 가져야 하는 인공지능 그 자체가 지켜야 하는 윤리라든지 아니면 우리가 인공지능을 대할 때 어떻게 해야 되는가, 뭐 그들을 기계로 봐야 되는지 단순한 도구로 봐야 되는지 아니면 뭐 노예라든지 동물과 같은 상태로 봐야 되는지에 대한 인공지능을 대할 때의 윤리, 그리고 인공지능에 관해서 우리가 인공지능을 더 올바르게 다루기 위해서는 어떻게 해야 되고 인공지능에 대해서 그 사업자라든지 뭐 정치인 아니면은 판매자, 사용자들이 어떻게 올바르게 활용해야 되는지에 대한 이런 인공지능 윤리 자체에 대한 정의도 일부 부족한 부분이 있습니다. 그래서 인공지능 윤리를 생각하면은 이제 첫 번째 인공지능의 윤리, 인공지능에게 책임과 의무를 부과할 수 있는가, 혹은 그 인공지능이 어떤 것을 지켜야 되는가. 사실 이거는 전문적인 기술자의 윤리이고 모든 전 국민을 대상으로 하는 교육에서는 메인으로 들어가기에는 좀 부족한 부분이 있다라고 생각합니다. 두 번째, 인공지능을 대하는 윤리. 인공지능도 역시나 기계 또는 도구 또는 존재로서 있을 수 있고 그들을 이제 어떻게 대하느냐, 뭐 함부로 대해서는 안 된다, 혹은 뭐 마음대로 뭐 부수거나 뭐 고장 내거나 하는 거는 좀 문제가 있다 이렇게 얘기할 수 있는데 이런 부분에 대해서도 역시나 근데 인공지능을 내가 어떻게 대할 것인가, 뭐 도구적으로 어떻게 대해야 될 것이냐가 이 윤리의 메인이 될 수는 없다라고 생각합니다. 그렇기 때문에 세 번째, 인공지능을 어떻게 다룰 것이고 우리가 인공지능과 함께 올바르게 어떻게 살아가야 되는가 하는 인공지능에 관한 윤리가 이제 메인이 되어야 된다고 생각합니다. 그래서 모든 시민들, 이게 내가 전문가가 되었던 인공지능 개발자가 되었던 아니면은 인공지능 판매자나 사업자 혹은 활용을 하는 단순한 일반 시민이 되었을지라도 활용할 수 있는 인공지능과 관계 있는 인공지능을 올바르게 활용하고 인공지능 사회 속에 살아갈 수 있는 그런 윤리가 필요하다고 생각합니다. 네. 그래서 결론적으로 저의 이제 오늘 주장을 말씀을 드리면은 네, AI를 만들거나 새로운 기술에 맞는 사고를 하는 것, 코딩적인 사고를 하고 순차적 사고를 하는 것은 매우 중요합니다. 하지만 AI가 아무리 중심에 들어오는 사회라고 하더라도 모든 사람이 AI를 개발하고 AI를 만들고 인공지능 코딩을 해가면서 살아가지는 않을 것입니다. 그렇기 때문에 AI의 올바른 활용을 하기 위해서 우리 인공지능을 개발할 수 있는, 코딩할 수 있는 엘리트나 전문가를 만들기 위한 AI 교육이 아니라 이제 모든 국민들이, 모든 시민들이 AI와 함께 살아가고 AI를 다룰 수 있는, 그러니까 뭐 노인이라고 해서 AI를 다루지 못하고 뭐 문맹이라고 해서 다룰 수 없고 이런 게 아니라 모두가 다룰 수 있도록 인공지능과 함께 할 수 있는 그런 윤리 교육이 필요하다고 생각합니다. 그래서 직업 환경은 급격하게 변화할 것입니다. 그리고 그 변화에 의해서 그 직업에 맞는 AI 코딩 기술, AI 활용 기술 모두 가르쳐야 된다고 생각합니다. 하지만은 직업 교육만이 우리 교육의 목적은 아니라고 생각합니다. 이들이 올바르게 사회에 살아갈 수 있도록 AI가 만연해 있는 사회에서도 정상적인 생활을 영위할 수 있도록 하는 것이 필요하고, 그러기 위해서 국민 교육은 AI 윤리 교육이 되어야 된다고 생각합니다. 네, AI 기술의 오용과 AI로 인해서 생길 수 있는 여러 가지 사회적 문제, 이를 극복하기 위해서는 우리가 AI를 얼마나 잘 다루고 어떻게 올바르게 다룰 수 있어야 하느냐, 뭐 같은 말이 반복되고 있지만은 이런 이제 올바름에 더 집중이 되어야 한다라고 생각합니다. 그래서 이제 기술 중심보다는 이 새로운 기술 사회에 AI 윤리, 우리가 AI를 어떻게 다룰 것인가, 여기에 좀 집중을 해서 이 어떤 윤리를 어느 순서로 가르쳐야 되는가, 그리고 이 윤리를 어디까지 그리고 얼마나 더 중요시해서 가르칠 것인가, 여기에 집중해서 앞으로 더 연구가 이루어져야 한다고 생각합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Okay, we've got time for some questions and so forth, if we have any. That translation is amazing, by the way. I love it. It's just, actually, I'm fluent in Korean, so I can translate for you. No. No questions? Objections? Really? No questions? I'm going to feel guilty and start asking my questions. None? So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you. In the States, we have no education in the United States. Did you have in Korea what we had years ago? We had a requirement for all computer science majors, almost all across the country. Everybody had to study computer ethics. Okay, and so did you have that in Korea? Do you have it now? You know, it had nothing to do with AI per se. It was ethics for writing programs that are responsible and so forth. No. Did you have that?
네, 한국에서는 그런 게 이제 없었습니다. 그래서 사실 어느 정도는 있었지만은 모두에게 의무적으로 부과되지가 않았었기 때문에, 그래서 이제 디지털 윤리라든지 컴퓨터 윤리에 관해 가지고, 네, 다시 말씀드리겠습니다. 네, 한국에서는 그 디지털 윤리라든지 컴퓨터 윤리에 관해 가지고 어느 정도는 하였지만은 그 굉장히 필수적으로 강조하지는 않았습니다. 그러다 보니까 좀 디지털 사회, 그러니까 컴퓨터 정보통신 사회에서 굉장히 이제 그 좀 문제가 생기고 한 경우가 많았기 때문에, 앞으로 이제 AI 같은 경우에는 이 AI 책임성이라든지 이런 부분에서 이제 사회 전반의 모든 사람들이 사용될 것이기 때문에 좀 더 빠르게 강조해서 이제 초등학교부터 가르쳐 줘야 된다라고 생각합니다. 지금 현재도 컴퓨터 윤리 관련돼서 의무적으로 이제 수강해야 되는 부분이 있기는 있지만은, 근데 사실 이게 뭐 아주 많은 양이거나 이런 건 아니고 거의 기술 쪽으로 좀 더 집중돼 있고, 주변에 이제 뭐 코딩이나 이런 컴퓨터 기술 하는 분들도 보면은 윤리적인 부분보다는 기술적인 부분을 대학교에서 메인으로 배웠다라고 해서 그 부분이 좀 부족한 부분이 있었기 때문에 앞으로 더 강조가 되어야 한다는 것을 이야기하였습니다.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's amazing to me. I'm old. You're young, okay? It's amazing that we required computer ethics, and now we're talking about machines that replace humans in their jobs. We're talking about machines that may be conscious, and we're not teaching computer ethics, and it's not teaching AI ethics. This is, am I the only one that finds this absolute? No one old, maybe you're all young. I mean, this is crazy. We had to hire faculty in the United States. I'm not protesting that, to teach computer ethics. But we're not hiring anybody to teach AI ethics, at least as far as I know, in computer science departments. So, yeah, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? We actually have 2 minutes. We've got someone in the back there. Go ahead. Microphone. Traveling microphone. She is incredibly fast. I've seen that before. Yeah.
먼저 발표 너무 감사드리고 초등학교 교육에서 AI 그 코딩 교육만 아니라 이제 윤리 관련된 교육도 같이 이제 진행해야 된다는 그런 점을 강조해 주신 게 참 와닿았습니다. 제가 궁금한 건 이제 초등학교 정도 되는 수준이 사실 인간 사회에 대한 윤리 개념도 어느 정도 습득을 했을지 제가 굉장히 잘 모르겠거든요. 아이들이 많이 어리고 이제 뭐 예를 들어 뭐 프라이버시를 예를 들자면 프라이버시라는 거에 대한 정확한 이 개념을 알고 있는지 그래서 이렇게 대충 이렇게 주변을 제 물어보면 뭐 개인 정보, 뭐 프라이버시 대충 이런 거를 그 흐릿하게 알고 있더라고요. 그래서 이런 거를 가르치는데 굉장히 조금 선생님들께서 굉장히 고생하실 것 같다라는 생각이 들어서 현장에서 느끼시는 아이들의 어떤 이해도나 이런 거에 비추어서 좀 초등학교에서 AI 그 윤리 교육을 한다면 좀 더 본인께서 생각하시는 어떤 철학 같은 것이 있는지 좀 궁금합니다.
네, 초등학교에서 역시 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 자세하게 이제 윤리 교육을 하는 건 사실 좀 힘듭니다. 하지만 이제 초등학교 같은 경우는 지금 이제 사례 중심으로 교육이 이루어지고 있는데요. AI 윤리 같은 경우에도 좀 이제 사례를 중심으로 하고 좀 이제 AI 그래서 코딩이나 소프트웨어 완전 빼버리는 거 아니지만은 또 초등학교인데 사실 코딩을 제대로 하지 못합니다. 애들이 전문적으로 하는 애들 제외하고는 그렇기 때문에 이제 프로그래밍이나 이런 거를 이제 체험을 하면서 그거를 통해서 이제 어떻게 해야 되냐를 합니다. 그러니까 예를 들어서 저 같은 경우 이제 그 초등학교 이제 현재 교과서엔 저작권이 메인으로 나와 있는 부분이 많아서 활용을 할 때 같은 경우에 보통 이제 뭐 구글에서 이제 그림을 그려주는 오토드로우를 사용해서 애들 보고 그림을 그리라고 한 다음에 그거를 받아서 인쇄를 해서 3D 펜으로 그리게 합니다. 그리고 나서 애들한테 물어봅니다. 야, 이거는 컴퓨터 것이냐? 아니면은 구글 회사 것이냐? 아니면은 이게 너희들 것이냐? 이렇게 해서 이런 식으로 아이들이 좀 프로그래밍을 체험을 한 다음에 그것을 통해서 이제 그 뭐 저작권이 됐던 뭐 프라이버시가 되었던 이런 것들을 좀 이제 활용할 수 있는 그런 것들 이제 사례 중심으로 교육을 하고 있습니다. 약간 구체적인 부분은 할 수 없지만은 아이들이 무엇이 윤리인지 무엇을 지켜야 되는지를 느낄 수 있도록 많이 이제 구성을 하고 있습니다. 네, 감사합니다.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. 8 seconds to go. Excellent. Tim, you're up. The next talk, at least as I see it here, the shape of social robots in educational context. Tim Lee, are you here? Well, I've seen Tim all over the place. Ah, well, that's what you do. You just show up out of nowhere. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start you at 20.
Actually, my topic is for today's presentation is the shape of social robots in educational context. But I think this presentation is based on a kind of theory which might be different from one that many of you have. So this is just about the appearance of social robots. So the appearance, as we can see using our sensory organs, but it's just the appearance is not just limited to the sensory experience. I think it contains all the kinds of possibilities in it. As we see people next to us, we see their appearances, and we expect something from that kind of appearances as well. So my guess is that we also expect something from social robots, which is similar to humans in many ways, not just for now, but in the future. So that's my presentation is based on that. So I don't deal with I'm not after the possibility of consciousness of social robots or the intelligence of social robots, something like that. This is just purely based on human perspective. So the contents, sorry about the Korean. The content is simple. I will look at some expectations for social robots that we have, and also the ethical issues of social robots briefly. And we'll talk about a concrete case of social robots, which is Riku, which is called Riku. So many people expect that social robots will satisfy basic human needs, many of our basic needs. For example, the relationship need or emotional need or communication, that kind of things. So basically, the shapes or appearance of social robots are kind of moot point here. Because as we see in many movies, AI or her or I don't know, ER or something like that. So as we see in many movies, social robots have their own appearances in some sense. In some cases, they are similar to humans, which we call humanoid. In other senses, in other cases, social robots have their own shapes, which is much different from ours. So my question here is that why social robots should have to be similar to us in terms of humanoids? So their appearance should be like ours. Some may say that because that could work as a benefit for them and for us as well, because we feel more comfortable if social robots look like us. That could be one of the reasons. But my question here is that social robots may have their own ability as well, not just appearance, which could be a little bit contradictory to my initial mention. But we expect social robots to have emotions. So for example, Pepper from SoftBank, which is called the world's first social robot with emotional recognition, can express emotions by combining 3 kinds of hormones. I don't know for sure how the process goes in terms of the combination, but serotonin, adrenaline, and dopamine. Pepper can combine those three hormones, and based on the rate of hormones, Pepper can make more than, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but many more than, I think, 50 kinds of emotions. Based on that, and Pepper can express their emotions on a monitor. And the interesting thing here is that Peppers can share their emotions individually. I mean, in the same place, if two Peppers are there, and one could feel sad and the other could feel happy, that could happen in Pepper's case. So this is kind of individualized version of emotional recognition, and I guess this is one of the main idea which the makers of social robots are concentrating on, because individualization can have many kinds of benefits in terms of education as well. So, socially assistive robots in education can be used in many areas, including language studies and STEM education, or as I mentioned, individualized learning. So we differ in terms of our capabilities of learning. So because of the differences in capabilities of learning, if robots can be individualized in terms of learning, then the learners can benefit from that kind of individualization. So as you can see here, Yeah, you can see just one social robot here, but if each student can have their own social robots and that is specified and individualized in their specific conditions or their level of learning or that kind of things, then it could be very beneficial to learners. But I can also raise an issue that I have mentioned in the initial phase of this presentation, which is the shapes of robots, especially in terms of the educational context. So some people differentiated two kinds of shapes of the robots. One is sufficiently human. The other is appropriately human. So social robots who are sufficiently human look like a human. Just as it says. So it has familiarity and identification and empathy, which is similar to us. And it could be the sources of curiosity, fantasy, because just for now, for the moment, social robots are not same as humans in terms of their capabilities, but in the future it could be different. The situation could be changed. But for now, if we see social robots that looks like humans, we initially think have the curiosity or fantasy toward them. For example, nowadays you guys may see the digital humans, which may look like humans, even though they don't exist physically. So the situation is the same in terms of the humanoid robots. So if humanoid robots look just like us, then people, especially in this case, in the education context, learners may have the curiosity or fantasy toward them. And sufficiently human also has the better communication skills, and not just verbal, but also physical kind of physical ways of communication. But compared to these appropriately human social robots is not a human. They may look like us, but a little bit different from us. Everyone who sees the appropriately human social robots, they may feel like they are not humans. They will know instantly. And interestingly enough, people will feel less hostile and also more relieved or relaxed toward them. Because we may feel relieved if the other person, the one who is before us is not like us, maybe is not like us, and we may superior to them, and that kind of thought will make us feel less hostile and more relaxed, relieved, or I think. So the ethical issues of social robots is simply speaking these kind of things I could think of. The first one is emotional touch. A humanoid social robot can look like us and can look like us, and learners can have emotional attached to them. And if this emotional attach is so strong in that case, that could be a problem in terms of education as well, because aside from the educational purposes or goals, and students may just try to stick to the social robots rather than learning or communicating or making relationships with the social robot. So emotional attach is a problem. So to solve the problem, students should think that the social robot is not a human. And the second kind of issue could be abuse. As we see in many cases, not just social robots, but in terms of AIs or digital humans, the abuse raises many issues nowadays. So because they are not humans, even though they look like humans, they can be dealt in not in sufficiently proper way. People may think like that toward social robots social robots or AIs, and they could raise the abuse issues, and there could be also privacy issues, and because social robots can have many of our personal information not just in terms of education, but also in terms of many our personal information, such as the health record, something like that, because they should recommend the most appropriate thing to us, and they should collect some data from us just for that reason. And they could also have biases, and because of the data they use for recommendation. And finally, they can have the accessibility issue. There could be accessibility issues because of the differences or of our socio-economic status and generation, race, and cultural differences. So some people may have also mentioned that the problem of fragmentation and accessibility and inclusivity, because we see only the fragmental aspects of the problem in terms of the social robots, and especially in this case, the appearance of social robots. So in this case, they may be faced at the problem issues of accessibility and inclusivity and cultural diversity issues, as many claim. So we should overcome the problem of fragmentation, but we need some, for that purpose, we need some.
Tim, I'm sorry, 5 minutes.
Okay, holistic framework. And we should design robots without neglecting context or organizational domain and cultural domain. So my final section will be about Liku, a specific kind of social robot made by Toruk company. Liku means like you, link you, live with you. As you can see, I think we can skip. Oh. Just take a look at. As you have seen, the appearance is Liku is very cute, right? Oops. How should I go back? Yeah. So the shape of Liku is, as you can see, Liku is a humanoid robot and is targeted for kids. And even though you didn't hear the voice is very cute, and the head size is very, big relatively to its body, and it can express some emotions. And the liquid is made for education, basically, and it can be used in storytelling, the traditional kind of tales. And if liquid is used in educational context, then it is a humanoid and it can learn based on the AI system in it. It can individualize, it can do the individualized education, and also it can repeat the education as many as one, as the learner wants. And the education is for all generations, not just for kids, but also for the old generations. So based on the purpose, the liquid can be used not just for storytelling, but just also for the app using instruments, something like that. So my conclusion is that how should social robots have to be, and why should social robots have to be a humanoid? As I mentioned before, humans can we expect something from social robots, and we want our social robots to be like us. And humans can share much of their private life and have close relationship with each other. And in this case, with human-shaped social robots. But a similar situation, which is to the uncanny valley, may arise here in this case, and that would be problematic. So, and also, moreover, people have a variety of preferences and expectations regarding shapes of social robots. So if we fix the shapes of social robots by deciding a kind of standard type of social robots, then it could be a problem because it will neglect these psychological or cultural preferences that we have. So it is kind of an organized thought, but that's it for now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have time for Q&A. Next talk, please. Thank you. I will absolutely not attempt pronunciation of your name because in both cases it's impossible. Ethical discussion on the applicability of digital humans in the metaverse era. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when 5 minutes has hit. Are you ready? Oh, no, you're not. You're not projecting up here, right? There you go. Okay. Thank you.
네. 네, 안녕하세요. 서울교육대학교 석사과정 재학 중이고 의정부 초등학교에서 초등교사로 근무하고 있는 방은찬이라고 합니다. 우선 국제학술대에서 발표할 수 있는 기회 가지게 되어서 굉장히 영광스럽고요. 저는 서울교육대학교 변순용 교수님과 메타버스 시대의 디지털 휴먼의 정체성에 대한 윤리적 논의라는 주제로 연구를 진행하였습니다. 네, 다음은 목차이고요. 지금은 주로 인공지능 중심의 시대라고 많이 불리는데요. 그 외에 다른 여러 가지 기술들도 함께 각광받고 있습니다. 그 기술 중에 저희는 메타버스와 디지털 휴먼을 소재로 가져와서 연구를 진행해 봤습니다. 먼저 메타버스라는 가상 공간은 저희에게 인간에게 새로운 활동할 수 있는 공간을 주었습니다. 그렇다면 새로운 공간이 생겼다는 것은 저희에게 그 공간 안에서 활동할 수 있는 주체가 필요하다는 것을 뜻하게 되는데요. 기존에는 게임의 아바타들이 그러한 역할을 했다면 이제 기술이 발달함에 따라서 새로운 주체가 등장할 수 있게 되었습니다. 아직까지는 그럴 수는 없지만 앞으로 발전하게 된다면 디지털 휴먼이 메타버스라는 가상 공간 안에서 그 역할을 할 수 있게 될 것이라는 생각에서 메타버스 시대에 디지털 휴먼이 어떠한 정체성을 갖고 있는지 탐구해 보고자 했습니다. 그래서 이러한 인간 활동 반경이 생성됨에 따라서 정체성과 윤리성과 민주성과 같은 여러 가지 논의가 필요하다는 생각이 들었습니다. 사실 디지털 휴먼을 여기서 저는 인간 세계의 극한적 재현이라고 보았지만 물론 앞으로 기술이 더 발전한다면 디지털 휴먼을 넘어서서 주로 말하는 포스트 휴머니즘이나 트랜스 휴머니즘의 사조가 이에 해당할 수 있겠지만 저는 과도기적인 상황에서 디지털 휴먼이 그러한 것들을 대체할 수 있다고 보았습니다. 그래서 도구적 인간이라고 불리는 호모 파베르, 이 호모 파베르가 계속해서 호모 사피엔스를 역전해 가고 있는 것 같습니다. 날이 갈수록 그러한 부분들이 확대되어 가고 있는 것 같고 언젠가 정말로 저러한 부분들이 완전히 넘어설 수 있는 순간도 오지 않을까 싶습니다. 그래서 리얼리티 기반 기술들도 함께 AR, VR 같은 기술들이 함께 발전하면서 이러한 논의도 가능해졌다고 생각하게 되었습니다. 저희가 주로 메타버스를 가상 공간이라고 부르고 디지털 휴먼을 가상 인간이라고 많이 부르는데요. 그렇기 때문에 가상과 현실이 어떠한 스펙트럼 안에서 보여질 수 있는지 그것을 한번 도표로 나타내어 보았습니다. 먼저 맨 왼쪽에 있는 것이 가상이고요. 맨 오른쪽에 있는 것이 현실을 나타냅니다. 가상은 현실을 닮은 현실적 가상과 현실을 넘어서는 초현실적인 가상으로 볼 수 있는데요. 그 중에서도 현실적 가상에서 현실을 실제로 더해가면 그것을 저희는 증강 가상이라고 부르고 있고 반대로 현실에 가상을 더해갈 경우에는 이것을 증강 현실이라고 부르고 있습니다. 그렇다면 가상에 현실을 계속해서 더해간다면 언젠가 그 끝에서는 그것은 현실이기도 하며 가상이기도 한 것이 되고 반대로 현실에 가상을 계속 더해갈 때 그것은 언젠가 가상이기도 하며 현실이기도 한 상황이 벌어집니다. 그래서 그러한 양쪽에서 서로 같이 끝으로 향하다 보면 어느 순간에 결국엔 만날 수밖에 없다는 생각이 들었고 그 지점을 하이퍼 리얼리티라고 부르고자 했습니다. 예를 들면 영화 매트릭스 속에 매트릭스에 사는 사람들은 그 공간이 현실인지 가상인지 구분하지 못하는 상황에 있습니다. 그러한 경우를 아마 하이퍼 리얼리티라고 볼 수 있지 않을까 싶습니다. 디지털 휴먼의 개념을 먼저 조금 살펴보면 아직까지는 디지털 휴먼에 대한 연구들이 많이 이루어지지 않았습니다. 그래서 기업들이 가지고 있는 디지털 휴먼의 개념을 먼저 한번 가져와 봤습니다. 가상 프로덕션 플랫폼인 버추얼즈라는 회사에서는 이 디지털 휴먼을 실물과 같은 3D 모델이라고 부르면서 이 딥페이크 기술과 다른 점으로 2D와 3D를 제시했습니다. 그만큼 저희는 딥페이크보다 3D인 디지털 휴먼에 더욱더 인간을 잘 모사했다고 생각하게 될 것 같습니다. 그리고 디지털 휴먼을 두 가지로 분류하였는데요. 하나는 버추얼 휴먼, 이것은 보통 생각하시는 버추얼 인플루언서들 같은 경우고요. 디지털 더블은 실존 인물을 복제한 경우를 뜻하고 있습니다. 그 다음에 이 디지털 휴먼을 인공지능 속에서 발견한 경우도 있었는데요. 한 인공지능 개발 업체에서는 디지털 휴먼을 AI 인간이라고 부르고 있었습니다. 그만큼 이 디지털 휴먼 안에서 인공지능이 적용될 때 더 좋은 부분들이 많이 강조되고 있는 것 같고 아래 이제 세계적인 회계 법인인 딜로이트에서도 똑같이 인공지능 안에서 디지털 휴먼 안에서 인공지능에 대한 이야기를 같이 했는데 여기서의 강점을 둔 것은 의사소통이었습니다. 그래서 기존에 옛날에 나왔던 사이버 가수 아담과 같은 경우에는 저희가 의사소통을 할 수 없었다면 이 지금 나오고 있는 디지털 휴먼은 기술이 발전함에 따라서 의사소통까지도 가능하다는 것을 나타내고 있습니다. 나아가서 디지털 휴먼에 주목해야 하는 이유 중 하나는 최근에 여러 게임 엔진을 개발하는 회사들에서 디지털 휴먼을 커스터마이징 할 수 있는 프로그램들을 만들고 있었습니다. 그 말은 제작의 용이성이 증대되고 있고 그에 따라서 상용화의 가능성도 커지고 있다는 것이기 때문에 주목해 볼 만하다고 생각했습니다. 그렇다면 조금 더 윤리적인 접근으로 철학적인 접근으로 나아가서 저희가 예전에 얘기하던 휴머니즘의 사조들과 조금 다른 측면이 있다고 저는 생각을 했는데요. 일단은 결론적으로는 마지막에 디지털 휴먼의 본질적 특성을 이렇게 다음과 같이 두 가지 기준에 의거해서 네 가지 범주로 나눴는데 이거는 이따가 추후에 다시 자세하게 설명을 드리고 이 부분을 먼저 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. 사실 인간과 유사한 존재 혹은 인간과 비인간의 관계에 대해서 저희는 사이보그, 포스트 휴머니즘, 트랜스 휴머니즘과 같은 실존하는 존재에 대해서 그런 존재론, 인간 유사체에 대한 존재론적 탐구를 했었는데 그만큼 디지털 세계에서의 그런 존재론적 탐구가 부족했던 것은 그만큼 디지털 세계의 인간은 사실 저희와 그렇게 비슷하지 않았기 때문이라고 생각했습니다. 그렇지만 이제는 기술이 굉장히 발전했고 그 안에서 저희는 디지털 휴먼을 피부까지 재현해낼 정도로 정밀하게 나타낼 수 있기 때문에 이제는 그 안에서 우리가 정말 영화 매트릭스 속의 주인공이라고 생각할 때 그 안에서 우리는 정말 인간과 비인간의 경계를 어떻게 구분할 수 있을까 이러한 논의를 해야 된다고 생각을 했고 그것을 디지털 휴머니즘이라고 정의해 보았습니다. 그래서 디지털 휴먼의 정체성을 두 가지 기준에 의해서 나눴다고 아까 말씀을 드렸는데요. 조금 더 자세히 살펴보면 첫 번째 기준은 근거성입니다. 그래서 이 근거성은 그럼 디지털 휴먼이 사실과 비사실 중 어떤 것에 근거하는가? 쉽게 말하면 실존 인물을 복제한 것인가 복제하지 않은 것인가로 구분될 수 있겠습니다. 그래서 실존 인물에 근거하여 만들어진 디지털 휴먼은 디지털 더블이라고 불렀고 그 다음 실존 인물이 없는 디지털 휴먼은 디지털 싱글이라고 불렀습니다. 그래서 이 디지털 더블 같은 경우에는 올해 있었던 20대 대통령 선거에서 나왔던 대통령 후보들의 AI 인간들을 생각해 보시면 되겠습니다. 또 디지털 싱글은 가장 쉽게 버추얼 인플루언서를 생각하시면 되겠습니다. 다음으로 두 번째 기준은 정체성인데요. 이 정체성은 디지털 휴먼이 그 자신만의 고유성을 갖고 있는가, 갖고 있지 못한가로 나눠지게 됩니다. 그래서 디지털 휴먼이 자신만의 고유함을 가지고 있다면 그것은 디지털 주체가 되고 디지털 휴먼이 자신의 고유성이 없다면 디지털 객체가 되는데요. 객체라고 불렀는데요. 먼저 디지털 주체의 예를 들어보면 좀 쉽게 설명드릴 수 있는 예가 장 보드리아르가 시뮬라크르를 설명하면서 미키마우스의 사례를 다음과 같이 듭니다. 미키마우스는 분명히 쥐의 복제이지만 사람들은 미키마우스를 쥐라고 보기보단 미키마우스라고 인식한다. 이것을 봤을 때 디지털 휴먼이 고유함을 가지고 있다는 것은 이러한 미키마우스와 같은 정체성을 가지고 있다는 것을 뜻하는 것이고요. 예를 들어 가상 인플루언서는 나이도 갖고 있고 그 다음에 취미도 갖고 있고 좋아하는 운동도 있습니다. 그러한 경우 고유함을 갖고 있다고 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. 다음으로 디지털 객체는 도구주의적인 성격이 굉장히 강합니다. 그러니까 예전에 저희가 게임의 아바타로 사용했던 아바타들이 이러한 인간이 필요에 의해서 나의 도구로서 게임 아바타를 사용하는 경우 이러한 경우가 디지털 객체라고 볼 수 있겠는데요. 예를 들어서 영화 레디 플레이어 원의 메타버스 공간인 오아시스 속에서 주인공이 사용하는 아바타 퍼시벌 이런 경우가 또는 매트릭스 속의 네오가 사용하는 네오가 디지털 객체에 해당한다고 생각할 수 있겠습니다. 네, 이것은 이제 디지털 싱글과 싱글과 더블 그리고 디지털 서브젝트와 오브젝트를 다시 사사분면 안에 표시한 내용이고 그 아래 아까 설명드렸던 부분들이 함께 나열되어 있습니다. 네, 다음으로 이러한 디지털 휴먼이 등장함에 따라서 결국엔 윤리적인 문제들도 많이 일어나게 되는데요. 그 안에서 저희가 생각해 볼 수 있는 여러 가지 윤리적인 대응을 위한 판단 모델로 이 어드바이스 모델을 개발하였습니다. 굉장히 독자적이고 뭔가 참신한 그러한 모델은 아니지만 저희가 생각하기에 가장 중요한 윤리적인 이슈들을 한번 6가지 범주로 나눠 보았습니다. 첫 번째는 허위성입니다. 이 디지털 휴먼이라는 것은 결국에는 누군가에게는 가상 속에 있는 존재고 그렇다면 그것을 가상으로 여길 때 허위라고 볼 수 있겠는데요. 그러나 이 문제는 나중에 우리가 이 디지털 휴먼을 진짜 인간으로 인정했을 때는 조금 달라질 수 있겠지만 아직 기술이 발전하기 전까지는 그것이 가짜이기 때문에 생길 수 있는 일들이 많이 벌어질 수 있을 거라고 생각했습니다. 그리고 최근에 딥페이크와 같은 진짜를 복제한 여러 가지 문제 때문에 다양한 일들이 벌어지고 있는데 그러한 경우가 이 허위성과 조금 관련이 있다고 볼 수 있겠습니다. 두 번째는 차별성입니다. 아까도 말씀드렸듯이 인공지능이 적용이 이제 되면 의사소통에 강점이 있다고 했는데요. 주로 인공지능 챗봇이 적용될 가능성이 있는데 인공지능 챗봇은 편향성과 차별성을 갖고 있다고 주로 얘기하죠. 그러한 사례가 여기에 속한다고 볼 수 있겠습니다. 세 번째는 폭력성입니다. 국제 비영리 단체인 디지털 혐오 대응 센터에서 이미 메타버스 공간에서 7분마다 한 건의 선정적이면서도 폭력적인 학대 사건이 벌어진다고 보고하고 있습니다. 그만큼 이미 메타버스 공간에서는 이러한 폭력성이 드러나고 있다는 것이고요. 어찌 보면 익명성으로 인한 인간의 폭력성이 이러한 공간에서 이미 인터넷에서 계속 발생했었는데 여기서는 언어 폭력을 넘어서서 이제는 신체 폭력까지 벌어질 수 있는 상황이 되었기 때문에 이 부분을 잘 살펴봐야 된다고 생각을 했습니다. 네 번째는 개인정보 침해인데요. 정보혁명에서 데이터는 어찌 보면 3차 산업혁명에서 석유와 같은 지위를 갖고 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그 중에서도 개인정보는 엄격하게 보호받고 있죠. 그런데 저희가 누르는 좋아요, 클릭 같은 경우도 기업에서 사용을 한다고 들었습니다. 어찌 보면 저희가 메타버스 공간에서 디지털 휴먼으로서 하는 그 행동들도 저희의 개인정보가 될 수도 있기 때문에 이러한 부분들을 보호하기 위해서 또한 사회적인 논의가 좀 필요할 것으로 보입니다. 나아가서 망자의 경우 지금 이미 저희 나라에서 가수들을 복원한 사례가 있는데요. 그러한 경우에 동의를 얻지 않았는데 유족의 동의를 얻었다고 해서 그것을 사용할 수 있는가라는 문제도 있을 것 같습니다. 네, 마지막 두 가지 선정성과 의존성입니다. 선정성은 앞서 기조 강연에서도 다양하게 다뤄주셨는데요. 그러한 부분과 비슷한 것 같습니다. 아까 전에 나왔던 내용들은 실존하는 로봇에 대한 그러한 문제였다면 여기서는 디지털 휴먼 공간에서는 사람들이 익명성을 가지고 조금 더 이제 성적인 경계를 넘어서는 순간이 있을 수 있고 그 안에서 아직까지 그런 합의가 이루어지지 않은 상황이기 때문에 조심해야 된다고 생각했고 실제로 그 메타의 메타버스 공간에서는 이미 그런 신체 접촉으로 인한 신고가 들어와서 이미 개인 경계선 제도라는 것을 도입했다고 들었습니다. 그래서 이러한 부분들을 조심해야 된다고 생각했고 그다음 마지막으로 의존성은 방금 전에
Sorry to interrupt you. Five minutes. Yeah,
오케이.
thank you.
네, 마지막으로 의존성은 방금 전에 사회적인 소셜 로봇에서도 나왔었는데 예를 들어서 레디 플레이어 1의 오아시스 속에서 사람들이 살면서 굉장히 광분하면서 그 세계를 즐기잖아요. 그 안에서 살아갈 때 우리가 그것에 너무나 의존하게 될 경우 우리의 현실에서의 삶을 잃어버릴 수 있다는 점을 착안하여 생각해 보았습니다. 네, 마지막으로 결론입니다. 그래서 새로운 기술이 등장한다는 것은 결국엔 인간에게 새로운 책임을 부과한다는 것과 같습니다. 그래서 디지털 휴먼이라는 기술이 새롭게 등장한 만큼 저희가 앞으로 어떠한 인식과 태도를 생각을 가지고 나아가야 할지 윤리적으로 계속 접근해 봐야 할 것 같습니다. 이상으로 발표 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, we definitely have time, about 4 minutes if there are questions, comments, objections. Thank you. One over here.
Just one moment, please.
In your opinion, I really appreciate that you gave your opinions about things. In your opinion, is it possible to commit a crime between two avatars in the metaverse? A crime.
범죄일지 범법일지에 따라 다를 것 같습니다. 저희 인간들이 규칙을 정하는 법의 경우 그것을 범법이라고 볼 수 있겠지만 만약에 그것을 범죄라고 묻는다면 그것에 대해서는 각자의 철학적인 견해가 다를 것으로 보이는데 저는 어느 측면에 따라서는 충분히 범죄 측면이 있다고 생각을 합니다. More. 오케이. 그래서 실제로 이미 SNS에서 그렇다고 해서 저희가 언어 폭력을 하는 경우 사실 그 언어가 디지털화 되어 있는데도 저희는 사람들이 폭력이라고 부르지 않습니까? 그렇기 때문에 메타버스 공간에서의 그러한 신체 접촉도 만약에 그러한 당한 사람이 싫어한다면 그러한 측면에서 누군가를 피해 입혔기 때문에 그것은 범죄가 아닐까라는 생각도 드는 것 같습니다. 완벽하지 못한 답변 죄송합니다.
Okay, anyone else? We have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So on that note, so if there's a crime, who are really the liable parties there? Should the company that is providing the metaverse infrastructure should it be liable, or should just the avatar be banned? What should happen after the crime is committed?
네, 이 부분은 사실 지금 인공지능과 관련돼서도 여러 가지 논의가 이루어지는 것으로 알고 있는데요. 만약에 메타버스 공간을 만든 개발자가 어느 정도의 그러한 기업적인 책무를 다하지 못했다면 기업에서도 일부 책임을 가져야 된다고 저는 생각을 하고 그러한 책무가 있음에도 기업뿐만이 아니라 그러한 행동을 한 아바타의 그 디지털 휴먼의 주인도 어찌되었든 내가 한 행동이기 때문에 그거에 대한 책임이 있지 않을까라는 생각을 합니다.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Do we have anyone else? Oh, yes, thank you. Round 2. Cool.
So if I steal a non-fungible token from you, right, online, and that's intellectual property usually, right? And so that's real stealing. This is not virtual stealing, it's real stealing, right? In your opinion.
제가 질문을 정확히 이해한 것인지는 모르겠는데요. 그것을 실제적인 도난으로 본다면 어쨌든 메타버스 공간에서의 이 디지털 휴먼의 문제도 결국에는 똑같이 윤리적인 문제라고 보아야 하는 것이 아닐까라는 생각을 하는데 제가 질문을 잘 이해한 건지 모르겠습니다. 네.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Fantastic, visionary
네,
stuff.
감사합니다.
That's great interaction. Okay. Next talk. User-guided augmented reality manufacturing, etc. Thank you very much. Great. Excellent. Give you 20 minutes. Ready to go?
Okay.
We'll start you when you got something up here, I guess. Let's be fair. There you go. Thank you.
There we go. Fantastic. So, hello everybody. Pleasure to be here. And I'm going to talk about, as the title says, user-guided augmented reality manufacturing, assembly, instruction, development, changing work modes during COVID-19 and its implication. So the work is part of Sherlock project, which is the European project, which has recently been one of 3 finalists for Industry 5.0. So award recognizes the work for European manufacturing, making it more sustainable, resilient, and human-centered. And human-centered is the main topic here on this presentation. So for the introduction, Industry 4.0 and now coming Industry 5.0 emphasizes human role in manufacturing, human role with new technology, and in particular where humans and robots or humans and new technology needs to collaborate. Oh, okay, thank you. And robotic technology has a great potential to make workers' life better, to make the manufacturing itself more sustainable, more flexible, and to improve well-being of the operators. However, we know that the reality is not always like that because there are lots of human-centered issues. Issues surrounding trust, so users either trust too much new technology or too little, and both options have some issues. Also predictability, so predictability in terms of robot or technology behavior, how it what it should do, what it shouldn't do, and also transparency. Transparency in terms of how it is introduced to the operators, and transparency in terms of the processes happening behind the scenes, so how actually robot is working, what is going to do next. So, additional challenge comes from COVID-19 because after 2 years of lockdown, different types of technology introduction and work modes started to be developed. And not everything is hands-on, and lots of training has been moved online or some other digital forms. And the work I'm going to talk about more is actually focusing, looking at both online and a hands-on experience, at the same time looking at different modes a robot could work. So the use case I'm going to talk is thermal collectors assembly. And at the moment, so this is the image of the actual assembly where 2 operators need to lift heavy thermal collectors. They need to laying on the assembly table and then move around the part itself and assemble different parts. The collectors themselves, there is some variability, and that's where errors occur because they look pretty similar and operators need to be very attentive which part they are assembling in order not to make mistakes. In addition to that, the parts themselves are pretty heavy, so it's physically difficult to lift them, to transport them, and in addition to that, the cell itself is pretty limiting, so operators quite often need to bend and move in other ways which are not always comfortable. So the solution for that is actually introducing a high payload collaborative robot, and helping with the instruction, with the assembly, actually using augmented reality guided device, so augmented reality glasses, to help operators actually to focus what they need to do, which parts they need to assemble. And the aims of the 2 studies that I'm going to talk today is the first one is looks at to establish the differences between online and hands-on training for the operators, and also getting their feedback on the processes being developed. So making sure that our technology is really user-centered and we are focusing on the user, on their needs and their requirements. And another study what I'm going to talk about aims to investigate the effects of robot communication, how it affects mental workload, trust, and situation awareness. So starting with study 1, we were looking actually how we could, so The study was conducted during COVID times when it was really difficult to get access to operators or even invite people to the lab because of, well, restrictions which were at that time. So we designed the first online study where we invited participants via Qualtrics platform, so online. Participants viewed a video of assembly process, so augmented reality guided assembly process, and then they provided their feedback with qualitative and quantitative questions. Once the restrictions eased, we actually repeated the same process, but in the lab. So we invited some people, some university staff and students, and repeated the same process, but this time participants were actually able to complete the process with augmented reality glasses. And as I mentioned, started talking about, so the first aim was to gather feedback to develop the technology further, and we used some qualitative type questions. In addition to that, we looked at quantitative questions, focusing on instructions. So how assembly instructions, are they effective? Are they simple, precise, understandable, concise, predictable? Also voice commands. Were the voice commands self-explanatory, were they easy to memorize, user interface, how it looks and feels, is it looks and feels friendly, does it provide quick access to features and commands. So all those quantitative questions were on a scale from -50, where it was disagreeing with the statement. So for example, this instructions I find really effective. So -50 would be, I don't find that effective at all, to 0, neither agreeing or disagreeing with the statement, and 50, agreeing with the statement wholeheartedly. Come on. So on the screen, you can see, does the video play? Yeah, you can see the video. So what online participants saw. So they saw firsthand video how an operator could be assembling an industrial part, so thermal collector, and it shows overlays. I'm not sure if the audio is here, but operator is able to control the instructions by voice, saying next window or next instruction, next step, also previous step, and etc. And so it's in general, online participants viewed this video, how assembly could be guided with augmented reality instructions, while participants on real-life hands-on experiments in the lab, they performed exactly the same task, except they were wearing HoloLens 2 device where they were experiencing that augmented reality. And both participant sets filled in exactly the same survey asking about the same experiences about instructions, voice command, user-guided interface. So what did we see? So looking firstly at instructions, we can see that both online and hands-on lab experience participants, they evaluated the instructions positively, but we can also see that the effect was stronger for participants who had lab experience, and most positively rated aspects for lab participants were instructions that they were effective, understandable, and simple, while online participants rated that instructions were concise, effective, and once again, simple. And the differences between those two participants groups, we can see in the ratings between simple, effective, understandable, and predictable evaluations. And that's where the real experience participants actually evaluated those aspects of instructions to be significantly, well, approaching significantly more positive. Also, looking at voice commands and user interface, we can see exactly the same pattern. With voice commands, however, there was hardly any difference between online and trial experience participants. However, with user interface, in both cases, lab participants evaluated that the interface looks and feels friendly and provides quick access to features and commands more positively. So in general, what the study shows, it shows that we can see the same trend between online and real-life experience. However, the actual experience gives way much stronger evaluation and feel for what it is. And the conclusions and further discussion will be at the end of this presentation. So, after receiving participants' feedback on the user augmented reality guided instructions, we actually improved the instructions themselves and proceeded to have a trial where participants would try to assemble the component with the help of augmented reality glasses, but also the collaborative robot Aura. So in this case, we had 10 participants with variety of different experience in robotics and augmented reality technology. And the study design was that participants, so we had two conditions. We had experimental condition, where robot was communicating its next behaviors by projecting on the ground what it's going to do next, where it's going to move. And then we had control condition where robots' movements were not communicated. It was within the subject design, so all participants had both experience in both conditions. It was just counterbalanced. And we were focusing on mental workload, measured with NASA task load index, also trust, measured with trust in industrial human-robot collaboration scale, and situation awareness, measured with the same scale. So, looking at the study findings, what we can see, so overall, looking at mental workload, we can see that frustration was significantly higher in evaluated factor than any other mental workload factor. So stronger than mental demand, physical demand, temporal demand, effort, performance, or overall mental workload. But separating and looking between two conditions, we can see that actually when participants receive that transparency condition where robot communicates his behaviors, it somehow makes the physical demand lesser. So participants indicated that they felt less pressure or the task became physically easier than when they were actually completing the same task, but without any communication from the robot what robot is going to do. There were no significant differences between trust and situation awareness between those two participant groups. So, looking at the study findings and what we actually can see. So, we can see that from the study one, that online and hands-on experience participants, the responses show the same pattern, but the effect is greater for people who actually have that real hands-on experience. And that actually has implications on how the future work might look like, because training becoming is very important issue, and the beginning of COVID-19 and some other factors, lots of training is being moved online, or at least introductory phases of the robots and new tasks is being performed online. And that's important to keep in mind that actually, although it's easier and sometimes more convenient to make sure that operators know how to perform the task, that they are really comfortable with it, they need to have that actual experience. Another important aspect what came from that is the importance of user engagement in early stages of technology development. So having that hands-on experience and being able to provide the feedback and knowing that their voice is heard, it's very important for later technology introduction and greater acceptance and actually engagement with that technology, to work together with it and to use it later on and to realize its potential. From the second study, we can see that robot transparency is important factor, because we saw in the previous slide with mental workload, almost everywhere, 5 minutes, I know, almost everywhere lab experience, all the factors were rated higher. And it indicates that, once again, knowing what robot is going to do next is very important to alleviate that mental workload. The interesting finding which came from that study is that frustration factor, taking overall, not splitting by conditions, was higher than any other factors. And possible explanation comes that possibly because of task clarity or waiting times for the robot to move the component from one position to another, it increased frustration for the operators, for the participants. However, that needs to be further investigated, and we collected actually some eye tracker data and some additional qualitative responses, and hopefully future studies will help us to understand and investigate this even further. So thank you very much.
Okay. Questions, etc. We have almost 4 minutes. I couldn't do that in my lab with the manipulation robot now because it's too dangerous. We can't actually have subjects, so I don't know. If there are no questions, I will ask one. Okay, so I saw that you mentioned you made use of a trust inventory or a trust scale, but I didn't hear too much about trust as a result or a factor or variable that mattered. Can you say something about trust?
Yes. So in this study, we used in-house developed, in our lab developed a trust scale, which focuses in particular on industrial human-robot collaborator. So how robot moves, how the gripper looks and feels, and all those factors. However, in this particular study, there was no significant difference between both conditions in neither sub-factors or the overall trust scale, which could be a good sign saying that trust was stable across both conditions, doesn't matter, irrespective of robot communicating its behavior or not. What will be interesting and what we are looking to investigate further is actually compare trust scores through the iterations of the development of the same process. So this is just one stage of Sherlock project, and there were several ones, and we're just tracking throughout technology development how operators are responding to the changes and further implications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in this section, then, finally, ethical self-driving versus data ethics. All right. Good. Thank you very much. We'll let you get started.
Hello. I'm really glad to be here to give this presentation in ICRES 2022. And today I'm gonna talk about ethical self-driving versus data ethics, norms of coordination and their consequences. And in this presentation, I will do 3 things. First, I will introduce ethical self-driving and norms of coordination. Second, I will outline a possible tension between norms of coordination and data ethics. And third, I will make some suggestions to resolve that tension. So, what is self-driving car? There's a lot of self-driving car right now, and we have to specify what kind of self-driving car we are talking about. And as you all know, there are 6 levels of self-driving approved by SAE from level 0 to level 6. So what level of self-driving? Level 0 to level 2? No, they are not self-driving. As you know, level 0 is not automated at all, and level 1 is merely assisted by automation, and level 2 is merely partially automated. So they are not self-driving. Yeah. So we are talking about level 5? No, because so level 5 is actually genuine self-driving car, driverless, and fully automated self-driving car. But unfortunately, right now, no one knows when we can get such fantastic and driverless self-driving cars. So I think it is practically meaningless to talk about a level 5 self-driving car. Then what about level 3 or 4? I think we can talk about meaningfully level 3 and 4, especially level 3, because we already have a level 3 self-driving car. So level 3 and 4 is conditionally automated, and I think it is a good time to talk about especially level 3, because we have already level 3 self-driving car. They are already developed and released on the market. So I think we have to talk about level 3. And there is a special interaction between level 3 and its driver. It is called takeover. When you use automated driving mode in level 3, you have to give the control of the car to ADS. ADS means, as you know, automated driving system, AI system in level 3. So when you use automated driving mode, you have to give control of the car to ADS. But when driving situation gets tough and ADS cannot handle it, ADS give control back to the driver, and you have to take it back. This process called takeover. So why does takeover matters? Because, of course, it concerns the driver's safety. If something gets wrong in takeover, you get hurt. But I want to ask, why does takeover ethically matters? Of course, it concerns others' safety. If something gets wrong in takeover, it may kill people. So takeover is not just about safety. I think driving safety is not only about safety, but also about ethics. So therefore, making takeover safer is making self-driving ethical. So we have to understand what's going on in actual takeover. And there is TOR, takeover request. What is TOR? TOR means alarming signal for takeover. When time has come, ADS send alarming signals to the driver. This is TOR. And there is a TORLT, takeover request lead time. It's simple. It's just the time to send TOR. What has to be done to calculate then TORLT? This is what really happens when takeover occurs. As you see, TOR happens and TOR, and T1 is perception plus reflex time for the driver, and T2 is time for mental processing and or situation awareness, and T3 is settling time. And the sum of T1, T2, T3 called time budget. As you know, the takeover is a matter of time, essentially. To calculate TORLT, time budget, T1, T2, T3, must be precisely estimated. If time budget is estimated too short, drivers may not be in a position to manually drive their cars, even when they are already in a situation where ADS cannot handle. So precise, efficient estimation of time budget is all that matters in takeover. And to do this, ADS should know about driver's profile, current states, and driving activities. It means that when you use automated driving mode in level 3, ADS should know whether you have kind of a disability and even how old you are and your current state. For example, if you are tired or distracted, it may affect T1 or T2 time budget. And most importantly, ADS should know driving activities. It means your driving habit, driving skills, and driving experiences. And of course, drivers should inform ADS those things. And this, I think this raises a normative question because what should ADS and drivers do to make takeover safe? In my paper, I have suggested norms of coordination to address this normative question. And norms of coordination. What is norms of coordination? It consists of two sub-norms, one for ADS and another for drivers. And the first norm is the norm of personalization for ADS. It says ADS must be as personalized as possible for each driver. So why personalized? Why must ADS be personalized? Because precise estimation of time budget unnecessarily requires personalization. It has to know your personal information to calculate precisely exact time budget. So if not, TORLT can be miscalculated and takeover can be highly risky. The second norm is the norm of compliance for drivers. It says drivers must comply to request of ADS. So why drivers must comply to request of ADS? Again, if you do not give necessary information to calculate TORLT, ADS cannot precisely calculate a time budget. And if you even provide wrong information, it will be some kind of a deception to ADS. So if you do not comply, again, TORLT can be miscalculated and takeover can be highly risky. I think what's the point of norms of coordination? I think the point is making takeover safe and self-driving ethical depends on both ADS and drivers. Both are responsible for ethical self-driving, drivers and ADS. So now it is easy to see how these norms of coordination involve data. To follow the norms of personalization, ADS must collect drivers' personal and even biometric data. To follow norms of compliance, drivers must provide those data. To be personalized, ADS must collect, store, and process data about drivers' profile, current states, and driving activities. So without such data, ADS cannot be personalized and calculate TORLT precisely. As a result, it makes takeover very risky. To comply ADS's request, drivers must provide such data as their profile, current states, and driving activities. If they do not, it will deceive ADS, and ADS cannot calculate TORLT precisely. Again, it makes takeover risky. So this is camera technology actually used in a level 3 self-driving car. As you see, a camera detects the driver's facial expressions, and infers whether the driver is drowsy or distracted. And even it detects hand distraction or the driver takes mask on and off. And this is a part of biometric data ADS collect. As you see, EEG, your brainwave is collected and respiration rate. Even galvanic skin responses are collected and stored and processed by ADS. Although this is a illustration of experimental setting, but there are already wearable devices detect your vital signs while you use automated driving mode. So here are my main theses. This kind of data collection can be problematic. In automated driving mode, ADS would know literally everything about a driver and their driving activities. Nothing is easier for car companies to use those data. Also, there are dangers of hacking. Some may even think that this kind of data collection is in itself unethical because it is too much. ADS know everything about you, and car company can use those biometric data about your body, about your state, how you are. So following norms of coordination may lead to sort of micro-surveillance on driver and their activities in their car. However, technologically, such data collection is inevitable in following norms of coordination. So there seems to be a tension between ethical self-driving and data ethics. For safe takeover and ethical self-driving, the norms of coordination must be fulfilled. However, the technologies required in following those norms inevitably raises the risk of unethical use of personal data. It is also highly likely that ethical concerns about data collection would hold back progress of the achievement of safe takeover and prevent self-driving from being ethical. However, refusing data collection makes takeover dangerous and put other people in danger. So this raises a question. How can you make a self-driving ethical and keep drivers' data safe at the same time? And here are my suggestions. Banning data collection in level 3 altogether is unrealistic, I think, because various driving monitoring technologies are already used in level 3. And for a safe takeover, data are necessary anyway. So I think these are realistic and practical suggestions. First, data ethics tailor-made for level 3, and data privacy law concerning data collection in level 3 should be established. So with those ethics, data ethics, we can train engineers, programmers, data scientists in the self-driving industry. And with data privacy law, the government may effectively regulate car company from unethical use of personal data. So safe takeover is, here's my conclusion, safe takeover is essential for ethical self-driving. And to make self-driving ethical, norms of coordination must be fulfilled. But following norms of coordination raises the risk of unethical use of massive personal data. To address such ethical concern, we need data ethics and data privacy law tailor-made for level 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a full 5 minutes. There are questions, comments, objections? Okay. We need the microphone sprinter. Microphone. There we go. Thank you.
As we move through the levels, have you seen any patterns developing that might give you meta principles of the development? In other words, I'm asking about the meta ethics of self-driving so that you could imagine what 5 and 6 will look like when you get there. Are there any patterns?
한국어로 대답하겠습니다. 저는 레벨 5나 혹은 레벨 6에서 특별한 어떤 패턴이 나오리라고는 생각하지 않습니다. 예. 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 I don't think there will be any patterns of matter ethical patterns in level 5 or level 3. Yeah. We don't know anything about level 5 and level 3.
Okay. Anyone else?
Similar question.
Thank
so,
you.
Yeah, you said we need a tailor-made for level 3, privacy law, and I'm related to his question actually. So then, does it mean that we need another privacy law and rules for level 4 and like another level for level 5? So, and I think that's why he was asking, is there anything like very common ground for self-driving cars ADS system? So I'm not very expert on this technology, so I want somebody's insight on that.
예, 레벨 5나 레벨 6 같은 경우에는 잘 모르겠다고 말씀드렸는데 레벨 3 and 레벨 4에는 어떤 공통점이 있을 것 같습니다. 기본적으로 같은 종류이기 때문에 레벨 3 and 레벨 4. 예. So if we establish tailor-made ethics or privacy law for level 3, and I think we automatically have a same ethics and law for level 4.
Okay.
And I think what I said is basically also applicable to case of level 4.
If there isn't anyone else, I'd like to make a comment. You seem to be an expert. You seem to be an expert in the area of self-driving cars, but in general, cars that can sense what the driver is. You mentioned the different parameters, but what the driver's current state is, I think you said. So I don't understand how it could possibly be ethical or ethically permissible to be building cars that don't perceive severe intoxication of the human driver and shut the car down. So if I look at Norway and the United States, more people get killed. I mean, it's huge in the United States. From what I heard in your talk, it should be trivial for car manufacturers to be able to enable their cars to sense when someone is intoxicated. Why don't we do that? I mean, it's takeover in the other direction. The car should take over from the human. Am I missing something about the car industry and ethics? I don't.
Can I put a spin on your question, just while he's thinking about answering? So if that happens, if the takeover happens in the other direction, then should the authorities be notified about the level of intoxication, and should there other parties be involved in that scenario? If there is a sensing, if there's a decision to be made, or something like that.
일단 첫 번째 질문에 대해서는 실제로 레벨 4 같은 경우에는 말씀하신 것처럼 테이크오버를 하려다가 못하게 되면은 그게 바로 이제 레벨 3, 레벨 4의 차이인데 테이크오버를 하려다가 안 되게 되면은 자동차 스스로가 비상 조치를 취하게 되어 있습니다. 그게 바로 레벨 4에서 아주 기술적인 쟁점이 되고 그 의사결정에 대한 부분, 사고가 어떤 일이 벌어졌을 때 레벨 3나 레벨 4에서 사고가 벌어졌을 때 의사결정에 대한 부분은 제가 조사해 본 바로는 잘 모르겠습니다. 잘 모르겠습니다.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much. I don't know that my mystery is relieved. I think that's it for the section, right, Tim? And now we go to the, someone else is chairing in a different section. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarma. I think next is another special session chaired by Andre. Andre, can you hear me?
Trying to do it. Just a second. Opening.
Okay.
I do the share. And is it on now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I should be there with you. Unfortunately, 10, 12 days ago, I contracted this crazy COVID-5 Omicron or whatever version. And even 4 days ago, I thought even I cannot even be present at all, not even virtually. But, well, keep fingers crossed I'm getting better. So, in previous meetings, I had several attempts to discuss the problem of life in relation to the problem of how to fit robots into a life world. And many of those discussions are available, obviously, in previous proceedings. You can find in the Clover website, previous proceedings. But right now, I mean, this meeting, this Clover meeting is especially dedicated to the problem of values, and the title is Claiming Sharing Values Between Humans and Robots. So basically, I need to frame a little bit briefly the problem, just to get everybody on board, to put into historical context. Science is about achieving objective, reliable knowledge. This is, well known. It goes back to Aristotle, to establish this tradition. And actually modern science, positivist science, mostly, buying into the same assumption that objective, reliable knowledge, that is non-subjective, subjective excluded, eliminated, and so on and so on. So Husserl philosopher noted that special method is needed to investigate life world, which is full of agents who are looking at the world from their subjective perspective, based on their subjective experience. So Husserl, based on Kantian and other previous insights or ideas, developed or argued for a phenomenology with special methodology to investigate life world, because he found the standard scientific methods are not suitable for investigating life world phenomena. Most of these phenomenological attempts were epistemological and ontological. We are talking about 100 years or early decades of the 20th century. And interestingly enough, the most difficult part of the problem is the problem of values left in the background or left hidden or not made explicit most of the time. There were some attempts, for instance, Max Scheler's, but I'm not going to get into historical discussion. But that's the nature of the beast. Why it is the problem of values, it is so enigmatic. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to facilitate with some ideas and trying to invite some discussions in this session. Okay, so the values are not quite arbitrary. That is obvious. There are some systematic. There is some system in the values different species use in their natural habitat. We are talking about living systems in nature, and that includes humans, animals, as well as actually other living things such as plants. For instance, it's obvious that there are different plants have different preferred habitats, climate, and so on, similar to animals. Human societies developed own culture, complex value systems, which changed over time during history. And clear evidence of these different religious systems in different societies. Scientific investigation of values suggests that the use of values is not based on rigid system, even though religious system try to establish a fixed kind of rigid system for a society. So why is it that we have these problems with value system, such as religious value system and so on and so on? The use of values is highly context dependent. And when science started investigating values, which goes back a few decades, only 5, 6 decades, 50, 60 years maybe, then, for instance, multidimensional scaling was a popular method, and that is based on the assumption that humans have their fixed value systems, and somehow these values, different values like appreciation of life, appreciation of friendships, and so on, somehow they are related, and they kind of constitute a kind of complex system. But unfortunately, over the ensuing decades, this multidimensional scaling has shown to be kind of futile because the value systems are not fixed. Alternative approaches emerged, like distinguishing between fixed and fluid values. Yeah, but that was not working either. Because it's difficult to find fixed value systems. So during the pandemic, and now we can get to the to our experience to demonstrate this or to think about this. During the pandemic, for instance, it became clear that the basic values such as human life, the value of human life, and value of human freedom are were interpreted in many different ways. We could see in different societies, and that's what happened. So I'm just reading the text just to be efficient. Recent pandemic experiences provided numerous examples how various countries tried to minimize mortality while trying to find a trade-off between human freedom and restriction of freedom to save lives. Countries with similar cultures, like Scandinavian countries or Anglo-Saxon countries such as Australia, US, and UK, had different policies, and the majority of population accepted their government policy, even though there were different associated risks to human life or different level of taking or protecting human life. Different levels of expected and actual mortality were different, like Australia, extremely low level of mortality with stringent rules. Yeah. In the US, it was quite different. In the UK as well, it was quite different. The differences seem to suggest fluidity of the core values because, what if human life is not a core value, not a fixed value? If if we consider that human life is a kind of casual something, we can take it seriously or not, other people, life is handled or sacrificed or whatever for the common good or whoever's benefit, then we are in trouble. So, and my point is that I think we are in trouble. That's one of the lessons we learned from this pandemic, because the differences seem to suggest fluidity of the core values human life is the fact of, it's a matter of fact. So interestingly, a large number of people show a rigidity, in favoring freedom at the cost of human lives, like, even claiming, oh, I'm not wearing mask because it's, violating my freedom. You could hear in the US quite often various actually groups of people, even political affiliations enter the picture. So overall, for me, that was a shocking experience, because I assumed that there are at least some minimal set of core fixed values, such as human life. And apparently, that was not the case. That is not the case. So in sum, my, facilitating statements are this. It is hard to find convincing evidence on the presence of system of values in human society. Values are mostly implicit and used in such a way that it is hard to find consistency and coherence in their use. In this environment, social environment we live, it will be a challenge for engineers of robotics to ensure that robot ethics or robotical rules or standards will be implemented and taken seriously as a standard, taken similarly seriously to various other safety standards like food standards, driving standards. There are infrastructure built around this. So that's my kickoff statement, and hope I provide some food for thought. So I pass it to the next presenter, who is giving some more kind of known but not known probably for engineers evidence, scientific evidence, findings. Alessandro Sfasolo, please. I close it, stop sharing.
Yes, please. Okay, just a moment. I'm putting up my slides. So the slides are not appearing for some reason. So maybe, Andrew, can you put them up? They don't appear in my windows, so. So I can start so we don't waste time. Well, first of all, pleased to meet my co-panelists and the audience at home and in Seoul. And I am external to this field. I am a colleague of Andrew at the psychology department. And I have been tasked in a way to explain why trusting the human when it comes to artificial intelligence could be dangerous. And obviously he has provided a bigger picture already in terms of essentially context dependency of human decision and behavior. So that's what I was going to talk about. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so just to start with a little conversation that happened on Twitter a few days ago. There's Francois Chollet that I think is in deep learning in Google, for Google. And he was thinking about machine learning becoming able to create jokes, if not understanding them, and then reaching a level of superhuman humor level. So obviously humor is something that is very, very specific of humans as such. And then in the thread, someone said superhuman humor isn't funny though. And then immediately the ideas came to mind of the world ending, mankind more correctly. And somebody said, well, at least the world will end on a warm, funny note. But then there is an interesting twist, and somebody else says AI systems could be literally mankind's last joke. So we see a reversal of the idea that actually the problem is not AI being able to do humor, but that someone's, could be someone's idea of a joke to end the world. Next slide, please. So if I understand it correctly, but you can correct me, this would be something that is covered by the point on the risk assessment from 2016 that we will hear now being revised about malign or inadequate human control. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to cover is three main domains which make humans not trustworthy. Obviously, I mean, reality, science, as well as imagination, really. And I don't know whether anyone thinks that sapiens is such a trustworthy species. But anyway, we go over a few of the main reasons. The first one is that we use cognitive all the time. So we use what is called heuristics. I'm sure many of you have heard of these. These are programming approaches that consider limited data and favor habitual thinking and stereotypes. So this has also been called by Nobel Prize Herbert Simon's bounded rationality, especially under pressure, cognitive constraints. Taking shortcuts is more likely. Essentially, what we do is to reach biased conclusions on limited pattern analysis, like, for example, I've met a thief that was of this ethnic group, then everyone in that ethnic group is a thief. So this is a heuristic of representativeness, it's called. So it essentially is the opposite of algorithms, which is taking into consideration the data we have. And we even know that data can be biased themselves. But imagine if you just consider a smaller pool. And we also tend to accept received wisdom from authority and the like. So, like synthesized very well, I think, by David Hoffman, there are many evolutionary good reasons to hold false beliefs. So we cannot rely on evolution to give us the best tackle of reality as it is, or understanding what's going on. Next slide, please. Thanks, Andre. Social factors, again, these are huge topics, but one thing that is quite recent is the confirmation of what was an intuition of Marcel Mauss, from famous French social anthropologist in the 20s, and that is that even gifts are given with the expectation of reciprocity, of getting something back. But a much more recent research on more than 60 societies across the world has shown that human exchanges are based on an expectation of mutual advantage. So there is cooperation, but always in groups that expect something in return from what they do and from the cooperation in which they initially put something in for the benefit of others. And then there is a groupthink, which is very, very common, and it becomes a danger when there is social pressure, and for reasons of groups' internal cohesion, people can just do a leap of faith and ignore negative evidence. So the analysis of the social psychologist about the explosion of the Challenger space shuttle was that there was the group of the NASA people and then the engineers, and you might know this because so essentially the NASA scientists wanted so much this to happen that kept ignoring alarm signals coming from the engineers, and I think it was 73 seconds after departure that the Challenger exploded, killing all the 7 astronauts on board. I'm sorry if this is really a green presentation slide. Thank you. Among psychological factors, again, so life, but there is something essential, which is that we are endowed with the self, which is empty. It's not a structure. It's not hardwired, but is a system that draws on a lot of energy, psychological energy, and has a built psychological dissatisfaction and need for confirmation. An example are self-serving biases. So in our perception and evaluation of reality, we favor interpretations that put ourselves in a better light. But also there is projection of the self outwards on position of power or super individual organizations like nations, and I say no more. So this obviously can override altruistic or communitarian considerations. Then there are limits that have to do with our capacity to feel for others. So there is a famous number that was identified by Dunbar that it says that meaningful relationships, that people that we can feel engaged with do not extend 150. But this is not surprising if it's something that in the media world, for example, of newspapers or traditional media, it's very well known that geographical and cultural distance decrease our sense of engagement with other people's suffering or issues of general interest. So interestingly, what they say about this in science is that in order to feel that connection with others and behave altruistically for the sake of humankind and not just you or your group, you need a control. You need a very sort of firmly hold belief that it's reinforced by your social group, that that enables you to care for humanity at large. Sorry, there is a little bit of text left over there. And the picture is about the recent earthquake in Afghanistan. And next slide, please. So this was all finalized to just sort of put down on the table some of the reasons why we can't just defer to humans generically as like the last decision will be in one human. So we're like, because that will not guarantee harm prevention for humanity at large, as the poor bees know too well. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your attention. You are muted, Andre. I think we have another speaker coming up. You are muted again for some reason, Andre.
I cannot unmute.
You have now.
Okay, Osman is the third presenter, so I pass it to him. Hopefully he's able to take over and say a few words.
The microphone is on.
It's okay. Yeah, thank you, Andre. Yeah, I was actually asked by Andre to also bring in the perspective of standardization into this particular session. So what I'm going to talk about is basically ethical guide to development and deployment of robots. Do you have the pointer, Tim? The pointer, sorry. Andre, you may want to unshare. Oh, there we go. It's good. Thanks. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is just to keep it brief. We are reaching I've got 5 minutes, it looks like. Just briefly, actually, there has been, of course, a lot of efforts, in recent years in terms of developing standards in terms of robots, robot ethics standards. And some examples, of course, you see on the screen in there. And among those, I think, in the United Kingdom, we started an activity to develop a formal standard. And that was, of course, the BS 8611, which was published in 2016. So that was, of course, that's something which may be of interest, which I'm going to bring in. The standard actually is basically a guide to ethical design and application of robots and robotic systems. So basically this standard classifies the set of ethical issues to start with into 4 main categories. Those are the societal application issues, commercial and financial issues, and also environmental issues. Now, the reason it does that is basically it looks into the issues, of course, a whole set of issues under each of those categories, and looks into identifying the associated ethical hazards to each issue, and then looks into identifying the corresponding ethical risk, and then mitigation issues. So this is basically the approach which the standard takes. And so an example of that is on the screen, as you can see, within the category of societal issues, privacy and confidentiality is one topic which was mentioned by several colleagues here as well. So the ethical risk to that is, as stated there, is unauthorized access to data and confidentiality and privacy, collection or distribution of data. And then the mitigation could be clarity of function, control of data, justification of data collection and distribution. And that goes along those sort of lines actually to develop some sense of how these issues may be identified. The standard actually is currently now under revision, and that particular risk assessment aspect is now more elaborated. And what we have done is to take the approach of the ISO 12100, which is basically the standard for safety of machinery. It has this flow chart, which is formulated within the context of safety of robots or machines. So we have adopted that, but of course we have somehow reshaped it and brought it into the ethical sort of context there. So it basically start at the top there to talk about the issues and identify the ethical issues, and then to carry out a few tests whether the robot which you have does satisfy those requirements or not. If it does, that's the end of the test. Otherwise, you go through a whole set of further tests and so on. So that's going to feature in the revised version of the standard. The other thing which we are incorporating into the revision is to look at the ethical guides and measures. And so here, again, we have a set of ethical hazards identified. These are assessed from the perspective of design in this case. And then once the assessment is done, then we look at the relevant parameters that are to be provided based on the design. And a further element of verification, of revision, is to look at the verification and validation sort of aspect in the process. And this is basically elaborated quite extensively because in the first version we didn't have such elaboration on that particular clause. So we look at the detailed general information provided. We look at and that constitutes the risk analysis, the design guidelines to reduce occurrence of risk or risks, verification via testing or verification via formal methods, and mitigation and suggested methods are provided. So that's those are the elements of revision which you will see in the revised version, basically. And this particular slide which I have in here is then touches upon the ideas which Andre and also Alessandra mentioned in terms of the values and how humans actually will comply or adhere to standards. So in principle, the standards are actually provided as guidance to manufacturers and developers of technology. They, in principle, are not actually mandatory. The adoption of standards is not mandatory, but these are actually voluntary. So it's to the manufacturer or developer to consider whether they comply with the standard or not. But in principle, compliance with the standard is to the advantage of the manufacturer or developer. Because, of course, at the end of the day, they develop the technology and they have to commercialize that. And if the product complies with agreed, international standards, then, of course, there will be benefit to them, of course. They will have customers to purchase and buy their product. Of course, the ethical standards are a bit more elaborate in the sense of a lot of stakeholders are involved in here. If you compare these to safety standards or performance or management standards, where, of course, the concern will be only a group of stakeholders in there. But in the case of ethical standards, we are looking at not only, of course, the manufacturer of the robot or technology, but we also involve the public, users, regulatory bodies, and all these would consider to comply with the guidance which is provided. So at the end of the day, of course, once the standard is available there, then it's the extent to which, of course, this ethical guidance is adhered to will impact on the future shape of the society and the character of humans in the society. And I think that's, of course, was highlighted by Andre's presentation, the way we behave, of course, the way we comply with guidances which are provided to us. And I think I can perhaps maybe bring up a very simple example, which we notice quite extensively nowadays, the use of robots in domestic environments, and specifically, let's say, for child care. Now, to what extent we would allow our child to be under the care of a robot, and to what extent, I think that will impact on the character of the child in the long run. And this is something, of course, some parents may not actually be aware of or maybe not consider, but it is a matter of fact because there are evidences of a change of character in the child. Similarly, examples were presented previously in a different context. If you put an elderly person in the care of a robot, the elderly person will suffer from social isolation. And of course, that is going to be not good, of course, and it will be detrimental to the individual. So I'll leave that to you as a thought, and thank you very much. So I think this session was supposed to be finishing at 7 o'clock, and it's now 5 minutes past 7. So I think this will be the end of the session. So with Tim's presentation permission, our next event is the banquet in about 25 minutes. So Tim, do you want to tell us where it is and how do we get there?
Okay. Thank you, Osman. So as Osman mentioned, our next is a banquet. All of you are cordially invited to the banquet, actually. So thank you for all who have participated the first day of the ICRES 2022. And the banquet will happen right next door where you guys had lunch today. Is room 307 B and C. So we'll see you at 7:30, maybe in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from now. Okay, thank you.